a team that has whatever it takes to actually win at the early stage. So, I'm focused on growth. Ido is focused on product, and Neve is focused on R&D. And so you get like all the prerequisites for the startup at the early stage. So you don't need anything else, basically. What you just need is the ability to scale that intelligence of these people.
Are you an overwhelmed SaaS founder ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where innovating with AI means fewer whiteboard marathons and more, wait, did the algorithm just solve that kind of moments? I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I hope B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Hope you had a tremendous Thanksgiving and good, safe travel back in the office, the final sprint of 2025 here in this last month. Today, we're talking about how to scale a business without bloating headcount or burning out your team. It's pretty amazing stuff. Today, we're going to step into a new paradigm for growth, one where AI isn't replacing humans, but partnering with them to build autonomous organizations. It's not about chasing vanity metrics or defaulting to hire more people. Anybody heard that a time or two in their career? I think I hear it about once a week. It's about building smarter, more adaptable systems that allow companies to scale with precision, not pressure. We explore the shift from outsourcing bottlenecks to solving them in-house by developing what the founders call an AI muscle. And that is embedding AI directly into internal workflows to increase output without increasing the complexity. You'll learn how automating the right tasks frees your team to focus on strategic, high leverage work while keeping operations lean and super responsive. From the power of an experimental mindset to the reality of hyper competitive markets, this conversation goes deep on how to create systems that evolve with your customers and outpace your competitors. And at the center of it all is a vision of a hybrid workforce where AI amplifies human capability instead of replacing it. So, if you're a founder, operator, or team leader looking to build the next phase of your company with resilience and agility, this episode will expand your thinking and maybe your toolkit. This is a blueprint for building beyond scale. Stick around, you'll want to take this one with you. Our expert guest on the Thanksgiving show was Clee Kleber, partner at Build Group. He laid out the roadmap for long-term founder-led growth. He challenged the venture model's obsession with speed, advocated for capital that serves the company, not just the fund, and shared how customer focus beats hype every single time. And our founder last Tuesday was Monica Marquez, founder of Flipwork. She shared how to lead through AI disruption without losing the human in the process. From rethinking work habits to building digital teammates, Monica unpacked how leaders can transform fear into fluency and help teams thrive in the era of intelligent work. If you missed either one of those episodes, go back and check them out. Lots and lots of great stuff there, especially about how to think about AI and implement it, not just as a bolt on, but making it a core part of your organization. My guest today is Amos Bar Joseph, CEO and co-founder of Swann, an AI native company building what may be the world's first fully autonomous business. With just count them three, human founders and a swarm of AI agents, they're scaling to 10 million ARR per employee, redefining what it looks like to build a lean company. Before Swann, Amos co-founded and exited 2 successful B2B startups in consumer communications. Now he's using that experience to rewrite the playbook, not in just how companies sell, but in how they operate entirely. If you're curious what it looks like to run sales, ops, and product with 0 employees, this is an episode specifically for you. Welcome someone who's building the future of business by rethinking how work works, all the way from the ground up. Amos Bar Joseph. Hey, Amos, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thank you, Jeff. Excited to be here.
Really excited to have you. You've built and sold two B2B startups. It's pretty awesome. But Swann feels a little bit like a rebellion against the growth at all costs model. Tell me a little bit about that, and what made you say there has to be a better way.
Yeah, I love the framing rebellion. It really speaks to the emotions that I feel inside when I talk about these subjects.
That's
Um,
awesome.
well, as you mentioned, it's not my first rodeo, and after two startups based on the growth at all costs, kind of like the quote unquote unicorn playbook, where you raise a big round before you even know anything about product market fit, and then you get to like 30 people before you get to your first $1 million in revenue. And then from round to round, you try to inflate your total addressable market and division more than you
Right.
really focus on your metrics. What happens is that it create really an unhealthy foundation for a company to really thrive. And I was burned out from that playbook, and I felt like it wasn't aligned with myself, with my employees, and with the market, with the customers. And then in Swann, what happened is that the emergence of this new technology of AI agents, I sat down and I said to myself, this is the time to reinvent the playbook. It's been stagnant for like 15 years. People still are talking about build an MVP, but Eric Rice coined MVP like in 2009 in his book about the lean startup, and it hasn't been developed since. How do you build and scale a business that can move fast? And so with Swann, we really set out to try to reinvent how does a company scale in the age of AI. What does it mean if you architect a business from the ground up towards human AI collaboration rather than human to human coordination? And so at Swann, we're just three founders working with AI agents, and we support more than 200 customers. And so we did like a successful POC about it, and I'm excited to chat more about it.
That's awesome. And it's a very different model. And I think it's one of the things that we're starting to see more of as time goes on. Is the old playbook was founders would scale by adding people. And you've got a bunch of customers, you're aiming for 10 million ARR with just three, three people, three founders, and AI agents. What is it that gave you the conviction that that was actually possible, not just a futuristic pipe dream, but something you could achieve now?
Yeah, so um, we're actually aiming for $10 million ARR per employee, Jeff.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think that it's actually the most important metric that founders and companies should focus on in the age of AI, revenue per employee. It's just that it's the best proxy for your ability to create leverage with intelligence, not headcount. And the more you scale that metric, the more suitable you are to this new age of scaling, basically. And so that's why we put our North Star focusing on value creation and leverage through ARR per employee rather than valuation inflation through these $1 billion valuations, unicorn status, etc., which doesn't mean anything, basically. And when we started, we didn't know if it's achievable or not. What drove us more is that rebellion that you mentioned at the start, is that feeling that, it's time to reinvent the playbook. And we didn't know if we're going to make it or not. It was just a bold bet between friends. And I partnered with my two co-founders who were with me in, my previous companies, and we have, big history together. And we're kind of like, we're a team that has whatever it takes to actually win at the early stage. So, I'm focused on growth. Ido is focused on product, and Neve is focused on R&D. And so you get like all the prerequisites for the startup at the early stage. So you don't need anything else, basically. What you just need is the ability to scale that intelligence of these people. And we started working together. And every time we got to a bottleneck, instead of throwing bodies at the problem, instead of just saying, let's hire more people, we turned to build an agent to solve that bottleneck, but not in a magical way, kind of like ideating and saying, what if we build an AI agent that could generate pipeline autonomously? No, it wasn't like that. what happened is that we started iterating in kind of like human in the loop workflows where humans and agents work side by side, and there's an iteration mechanism where we refine that collaboration until we got to a process that one person could scale to an output of what used to in the past took 10 people. And initially we did that with support, for example. So, the first huge backlog that we had is that we scaled fast, but we were just 3 people, so many, B2B customers, and we felt like we're cracking down the pressure of supporting all that people. And so instead of just hiring an AI agent to take care of all that support effort, and then who would know what would have happened? What actually happened is that we started iterating on building an AI agent that step by step could start alleviating some of these pressure points. It started from just answering simple questions in Slack, and if it doesn't know the answer, just say it doesn't know the answer. Then understanding that it might escalate these situations where it doesn't know the answer to the founders. So the founders could actually respond to these customers that are asking questions that are unanswered. And then finally, what happened is that we told the agent that every time we tell the answer to document it in that Q&A. And so we started answering every question once. And so what happened is that it evolved into kind of like a self-learning support system. And the lesson around all of that is that it's feasible, but only in a way that is focused on human AI collaboration through an iterative process.
Oh, that's really, really good. And you designed it to be the first autonomous business. And I think just putting it in those terms is really good. And what you're doing is leaning that way. Every time you hit a roadblock, the solution is how do we build an agent to solve this? And then you have the agent there. How do we make that agent smarter so that you're answering questions one time and then it's got it from there forward, so that the exceptions become less and less and less, and then it only the really rare things stand out. How does that doing that and kind of building to be autonomous, how does that change the way you make decisions as a founder?
Yeah, so when we decided to call this new model autonomous business, we focused not on the fact that it's kind of like run on autopilot, and it's not what we're trying to aim for, a business that runs on autopilot. It's actually about autonomous employees and autonomous agents working together. So the autonomy is actually the key component here, and it's divided between the employees and the agents. And in an autonomous business, each employee has much more agency and an area of impact that is larger. And
I like that.
What we thrive actually to position each employee is within their zone of genius. What does that mean? It means that we're not trying to hire people and put them in a specific bucket. We're looking at that specific employee, and we try to put them in the area where their skills and passion intersect into disproportionate value creation. And then the agents can fill in the gaps that are around that zone of genius, automating the mundane and amplifying the genius. And so when you look at that from that perspective as a founder, what you're trying to do is you're always looking at every process. How can I build a system where the humans that are on my team are always in their zone of genius, and the agents are operating around them to scale that operation without losing sight on the important but mundane tasks.
That's really good. How do you build a role then if you're hiring based on you need something done, agents aren't doing it, then you have somebody and you're building the agents around their skill. How do you know what to hire next?
So it's actually the same thing with which agents to use. It's funny, and I didn't think of it up until now that you asked me. It's the same methodology that we use for agents, we use for employees. It started with a challenge, with a bottleneck. You're faced with a challenge, something, and then you think, okay, how could I solve that, right? And so it's not like every challenge could be solved with AI agents. So our first go-to is actually to solve that with an AI agent in our existing team. But sometimes we need that knowledge internally to power everything. We need a human being to steer that entire ship. So, for example, one of the challenges that we're hitting right now is sorry. One of the challenges that we're hitting right now is how do we optimize kind of the entire funnel from someone interacts with our brand to all the way to the product, free trial, self-serve, etc. Right? And so we have Ito, he's on the product team, and we can build additional agents that could help him in that. But if we actually hire someone that would have ownership over that specific area, then the ability for us to leverage intelligence will compound significantly, because that person will know exactly where to look, where to find the real challenges, how to A/B test, etc. And there's some skills that are missing for us in that specific area. And so that's how we know it's not going to be resolved with an agent. We need a human being right now to actually steer the ship of product-led growth, of performance marketing, of all that optimization. And so right now we don't have a JD. It's not like we have a job description. What we have is a challenge, area of expertise, etc. And then we go to the market. We try to look for talent, for like the best people out there that have that skill set. And every person comes with a different set of skills. It's not like they match like a glove, right? It's like they're better at X and they're worse at Y, and maybe they have additional skills that wasn't included in what we first thought of. And what we do in that process, which is most important, is that we try to look at that specific person and imagine how can we build a system around that specific person so they can excel at their zone of genius. We try to map their zone of genius together, trying to understand where they're most comfortable at, where they want to thrive, where they want to be most at. And then if we could actually build a system around that, then we feel comfortable in saying, yeah, this is a talent that could maintain that $10 million ARR per employee metric that we're striving for.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, tell me, really tell the audience, what does Swann do? What problem do you solve? And how did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, so Swann is the pillar that turns your GTM into an autonomous organization, your go-to-market operations. And in our journey of discovering what does it mean to build this architecture of an autonomous business, we realized that to actually build an autonomous go-to-market organization that has autonomous sellers and marketeers and autonomous agents working together, then you need a tool to coordinate that and build that and help you execute on that. And so that's kind of like the journey that led us to, okay, how do you build a tool that could serve that specific position? And Swann, our customers, they look at it and they call it Lovable for GTM. And it's basically an AI go-to-market engineer. It's kind of like a developer that works with sales and marketing and sometimes founders or RevOps to turn any go-to-market idea into an agentic workflow. So you can scale go-to-market with intelligence, not revenue, not headcount, and really iterate on your go-to-market at the speed of thought. And so it's really about removing all the technical complexity that stands between your ideas and their execution. It's really about having an engineer that can take that iterative process of identifying a challenge, iterating on it, and then building a human AI collaborative workflow that could solve that challenge and could scale with intelligence without all the technical complexity that is required. You just prompt it and it just happens, basically. And so Swann is really designed to remove all the technical complexity that stands between go-to-market teams and their ideas.
Oh, that is really, really good. I love that, just being able to put it together that way, because sales tech is traditionally kind of difficult and onerous, and even some of the big platforms are just not that user friendly, or they don't really follow workflow that well. And so you need something else, and you have something, then you end up with a real hodgepodge of things in your go to market stack. So I love the ability to build what you need, very easily on top of that. And it doesn't really matter, what's underneath it. It just gives you what you need.
Yeah, and for 20 years, sales tech promised buyers to actually have more interaction with humans and less interaction with systems. That was every promise, every tool that came has that, that value proposition. And we've seen companies like Salesforce or HubSpot, promising, a platform to manage your relationships so you can spend more time actually building these relationships. What happened over time is that people just spent a lot of time maintaining these CRM instances. And then came, sales engagement and sales automation, which helps go-to-market teams to build email campaigns and marketing campaigns, etc. But these platforms were also complex, and sellers spent most of their time just working with these platforms rather than working with buyers. And eventually, what we see is that AI should be used not to replace the seller, but actually to replace all the system interactions that this seller has. And so when you look at the current pace of innovation right now and which type of technology is actually gaining more adoption, is more successful, you can look at companies like Cursor or Lovable or Base 44 that are building these engineers, AI engineers, and you can look at their success and their speed of growth. And then from the other side, you can look at companies, if you're familiar or not, like 11x or RDesign or AISDR, which are all building these AI sellers in that sense. And you can look at their pace of innovation and the ability for them to really replace sales teams. And we're seeing that it's not there. And what I see is buyers maybe sitting on the sidelines saying, yeah, maybe one day AI will be better than sellers, but it's not right now. And at Swann, we actually see a different future. We see a future where AI takes away all the technical complexity, takes away all the mundane, the busy work, the things that are not really interesting, and just amplifies your human talent. And that's how you can create this unfair advantage in the GTM space, where you have your talent, you have your DNA, your understanding of the market, and that's what sets you apart. Not how much you're paying to OpenAI to just send bulk emails in a personalized way. That's not what will give you the best advantage. What will actually give you that advantage is the way that you operate and the way that you think and the talent that you have.
So good. And the irony is that you're 100% in on AI, and at the same time you're using it to make sales a lot more human and relatable and connect people. And so it is taking the mundane work and giving that to the AI, but it doesn't take people out of the equation. It is, just like you said before, using the skills of those people to make those human connections.
Yeah, we have arguments internally about AGI or SSI, like super intelligence or general intelligence, and when and if, etc. What we could all agree within the company is that it's not here and it's not going to be around for the next couple of years at least. And we know that humans still play a critical role in the economy and in the industry, and specifically in go-to-market. And what's actually interesting about go-to-market is that it's different than engineering, it's different than support, it's different in a lot of areas in the sense that it's a zero-sum game. What does that mean? It means that when you look at software like an R&D, if you increase productivity, that's amazing. So for example, all the teams in the world could just use AI engineers and the world would just generate more software, which would just be more beneficial to the world. That would be amazing to have just more software, better software, faster. At go-to-market, it's not like that. Why? It's a zero-sum game that everyone is fighting over the attention of the buyer and the budget of the buyer. The attention is finite and the budget is finite. So if everyone uses AI SDRs, for example, in the same way, and the productivity increases by 100x, it doesn't matter. The budget is finite and the attention is finite. It will move that, right? And so go-to-market is a zero-sum game where you're actually competing against your peers and counting against your vendors and that same other vendors in your space. It doesn't need to be even competitors. If they're just fighting over the attention of the buyer or the budget of the buyer, then they're competing with you over that. And you just need to outmaneuver them. You don't need to just be better. It won't help you to be better. You need to be different. You need to be better than your competitors in that sense. And so in that point of view, humans will always be that X factor in go to market. And humans will always be the ones that would actually create that unfair advantage because they will be able to innovate and actually, diverse off the playbook and be different than their competitors. And in that way, capture the attention of the buyer and the budget of the buyer in a better way.
So with all these tools, if everybody is using them, and I agree, zero sum game because the resources, the buying power is finite, the attention certainly finite, and we're seeing that get spread very thin. How do you stand out in that world where everybody is using AI? I mean, there's so much saturation through technology of the marketplace. How do you stand out and really get the buyer's attention? And then once you have the attention, how do you convert that into a sale?
Yeah. So I'll start with kind of like the framework, how to think about it, and then how I think about it specifically in my startup. But from kind of like a framework perspective, the moment that you remove all the technical complexity with kind of like a tool like Swann, then you can start iterating on your go-to-market at the speed of thought. And what happens is you start hypothesizing and experimenting with different ideas and different channels and different strategies and different contents and different buyers and different value propositions, and it's infinite in that sense. And the more you experiment, the more you can understand that B is better than A, now C is better than B, now D is better than C. And what you can start adopting is this experimental point of view to go to market at an incredible pace. And that's a framework that go-to-market teams should adopt, no matter if they're in early stage, more so if they're an early stage startup, but even if they're in an enterprise level, everything is changing so fast that you have to keep the pace of innovation so fast. It's not only in product, it should be also in GTM, that pace of innovation. And so I feel like you should never, say this is what we're doing for the next quarter. You should always say, how can we build a test and experiment to say if this is the right way to move forward. Even if that experiment was successful, you still need to be on your toes and say, okay, let's build another experiment to see if that could be even better, and
Right.
keep on innovating, right? But at Swann, we actually added another aspect to it, and we have this rule of distribution arbitrage, it calls. It means basically that the more a playbook gets adopted, the less efficient it is. And it actually stems from this notion of that attention is finite. And budget is fine. And if a playbook gets popularized, then it means that everyone is doing the same, and your
Right.
ability to rise above the noise just diminishes. And so what we aim for is actually these unconventional playbooks, because these playbooks, these tactics, are the ones that you can drive the most disproportionate value from the resource that you invest in. And so the more early you are, the more risk you can take. And if you're an early stage founder, even up to Series B or so, you can be extremely risky and just try to go after these unconventional tactics like LinkedIn and building a founder brand, or living inside of communities, or if you're in developer space or lurking on open source projects or whatever. You should find it because it should be innovative in that sense. And then the more you scale, you should build a mix of having your safe bets where you just burning money, and you're throwing resources at the least ROI positive effort that you can run and go to market, and that's your basis, and that's where that you can build something predictive on top of it. But you should always run these high risk experiments on kind of like the peripheral area of that base.
Are you missing key relationships that could transform your leadership? Most leaders are. They just can't see it. And here's what shocked me: the most successful leaders aren't lone heroes. They're the center of four specific relationships that multiply their impact while preserving their sanity. You're probably like everybody else, drowning in connections, but starving for real support. And it's creating a silent epidemic of leadership burnout among executives just like you. So, take my free assessment at thecaptainskeys.com. Discover which critical relationships you're missing in under 5 minutes, and then grab my new book, The Captain's Keys, part Netflix drama, part game changing blueprint for leadership that actually sustains you. One CEO called it the owner's manual I never got. So stop flying blind and see what you're missing. That's really, really good. The experiments, it's kind of endless, and of course, there's a lot of FOMO and flash around AI. How do you cut through the noise and decide what to build or what experiments to run?
Yeah, so I love that question because I feel like it's the most requested answer right now in the AI space, yet it's the simplest one. And it's so funny because nothing has significantly changed in terms of buying a tool to your company now that we have AI. It's still the same process. You should look for the challenges that you have internally, map out a process that you think that might move the needle, and then look, either build versus buy, right? That entire notion of build versus buy hasn't changed significantly. What happened is that the FOMO and hype of AI drove mad everyone, and people are looking outside before they're looking inside.
Yes.
And they're looking at, okay, which agents should I use? Which tools do you recommend? Which AI solutions are hot right now? These are the wrong questions to ask. The right questions to ask is internally, your team, where do we have bottlenecks? Where do we have our most significant challenges or the opportunities that we see that we could capitalize on? Map the state that we are right now, map the future state that we want to be in, and then look at the tools that we need to get from A to B. And that hasn't changed dramatically in that sense. And it might be inconvenient to some people, but no one will help them in that transformation. They just need to look inside and understand the challenges. And the cool thing about AI is that it's the most intuitive technology that's been invented since the fire, maybe. When I tell my grandmother that here's ChatGPT, and she just looks at it and talks to it, and she gets it instantly. It's not like the internet. When you told your grandmother or grandfather about your internet, they looked at, but why do I need it? But what is it? It's a much simpler technology. It's super intuitive to actually work with. So
Yes,
the reason why you're not getting it is because you don't know what to use it for, not because you don't know how to use it or which AI solution you need. You just don't know what to use it for, and that answer lies within your business specifically. And I do want to give some idea to the listeners here of what you should actually focus on that is different in the AI age, in this build versus buy dilemma. What actually did change is the fact that you need to build the AI muscle, what I call it. Okay? How do you become an AI native organization has nothing actually to do with being an LLM engineer or a prompt engineer or an agent builder. All you need basically is to develop that AI muscle. And what does that mean? It means that in the build versus buy dilemmas that you have internally, you should have a bias towards build right now, actually. What does that mean? It means that you should start developing solutions internally or interacting with platforms that enable you to actually be the main driver at the seat and not follow someone else like a vendor, so that you can start developing your understanding of what works internally and what doesn't work. And that AI muscle is just that interaction with AI solutions in the context of your business. And the more that you interact with these AI solutions, the more that you take the driver's seat, then the more you can build the AI muscle, and the more you can make yourself and your entire organization ready for a future where AI is becoming more and more dominant. You don't know which solutions will be here tomorrow. The only thing that you can rely on is that you're building your AI muscle so you're prepared for a future where AI is prevalent.
That is guaranteed that's going to be here. That is the future. It's going to be part of business going forward, just like the internet and computers. But I think it's fascinating just that it's not prompt engineering. I think that is a mistake that a lot of companies make, is they're really focused on that. Or just like you said before, it's the mistake of going out there and looking outside, looking for a solution, and then trying to figure out how to apply it to a problem or fit it into their existing product. And it's backwards.
Exactly. And you need to start looking internally, start building things internally. It's okay to use platforms. And I talk about it from the perspective of Swann, because Swann is an enabler. We don't promise leads that fall from the sky for our clients. It's not about that. It's about really interacting with a powerful AI agent that can just unlock the things that you think as the user that will move the needle for your business. That's what I mean by sitting at the driver's seat. It means that you are proactive, you're taking the reins, and you are telling where the AI should work, where the AI should focus. And even if you fail in that specific experiment, it didn't move the needle, you developed your AI muscle. And so you're more prepared for the future. And so that's why I think that you should have a more building mentality right now. And it's actually more about the driving mentality and not sitting in the backseat looking for short-term wins for an AI solution that could somehow give you all the answers that you were looking for.
That's really good, because building the AI muscle is such a great analogy. I think a lot of times, people will optimize for perfection when they adopt AI, or think that they're going to get the same response every time, which doesn't happen. And looking for perfection, I think you can actually have experiments that fail pretty bad. But it's that constant experimentation and failing forward and building that muscle, not looking for perfection, but looking for something that works pretty good right now and can be adapted and iterated and move forward. And I think that's the winning strategy.
I couldn't agree more. And when you look at AI implementations and why they fail, so unfortunately, we're at the phase where Gartner said that over 90%, or it was an MIT report, I don't remember exactly, but Gartner or MIT said that over 90% of AI agent implementations right now fail. And it's very unfortunate. And the number one reason for that, after having hundreds of successful AI implementations from my perspective, and some implementations at the beginning that did fail, the number one reason for that is that the user, the buyer, the organization is optimizing, and the vendor together, they're optimizing for perfection, not for adaptation, as you just laid out, Jeff. And the reason is why that is the number one reason is because you don't know what perfection looks like when you start. And
Right.
AI is a new technology, and you don't really know how to leverage it. You don't know what the tool is capable of, and you don't know what your talent is capable of when interacting with that tool. And it's really about that combination of how does my organization interact with this new intelligence? How should we find something that works? And if you look at it more of as like onboarding and hiring, then you know that you're optimizing for adaptation, for change, for continuous growth that is collaborative, right? And that's how you should look at AI. You should look at an implementation process and think, okay, are we building a system that can adapt to our learnings throughout that implementation phase, right? That's what you should optimize for, not if are we going to get to that state that we're really hoping for. And
Right.
what happened is that all the energy and focus is going towards building a solution that can do X, Y, Z. And that's the wrong approach. What you should actually focus your attention and resources is towards building a system that can react to feedback and can evolve itself based on your continuous learning and understanding. And if you build that, then I promise you 100% that the implementation would be successful. What you might learn is that the business area that this implementation was directed towards wasn't the right business area, but the implementation would 100% be successful.
Really, really good observation. I think another reason that the experiment, or the failure rate, we'll call it, is so high, and there have been multiple reports released about that. I think McKinsey was like 95%. But I think a lot of that is because there are a lot of experiments that are happening. What do you call a failure, and what do you call a project? Did you learn anything? Did anything come out of that? And I think the answer would have to be there's got to be some sort of learning, or it's a total waste. But what does failure really mean? I mean, you gave up? I mean,
Yeah.
come on. It is a new technology, and there are going to be a lot of experiments, and most experiments probably aren't going to be successful. But when you can find the ones that are, and you can take the learnings from the ones that aren't, and then try again and iterate on that. I think that's you end up with something much better. But I love what you said about not understanding what perfection is at the beginning. Sometimes I think we do. We have this ideal in mind, and then once we start building, I think you're right, it shifts, and there's another use case, or there's something better. We go a different direction, and that idea of perfection, maybe if it was sold to stakeholders, that's something that doesn't necessarily materialize. Maybe that's what they're calling failure.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like failure is defined by these users or buyers or organizations when they really want to get to that perfection state and they just don't get to it because the AI solution didn't deliver, right? And it stems from this notion of looking at perfection and at a specific state that we want to get to as the main goal of the project. But when you look at the iterative process, the continuous learning and feedback loops as the main goal and focus of the project, then you can't really fail in that sense, Jeff, right?
I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago, just about marketing and doing things differently. If everybody's doing it the same way, then it stops being effective. And I think that kind of falls into the marketers run everything. And everything works until everybody starts doing it and then it stops. But what you're doing is you're looking for those use cases that are outside of that. What is it that makes your approach to go to market so different? And then how does AI speed up that strategy loop?
Yeah, so at Swann is because we're building an autonomous business and we have autonomous employees. I'm an autonomous employee myself. I look at my zone of genius where I want to operate as a marketeer and a person oriented towards the growth of the company. My passion lies within storytelling, actually. Storytelling
Love
and
it.
writing content. That's what actually I love doing, and I discovered it only in the recent few years. And so at Swann, it was obvious to me that that's where I should double down on in that specific area. And what we did is we realized that my passion, together with the skills that I have in creating content, when you combine them with the powerful narrative that we have as an autonomous business, that could actually be a potential for an unconventional tactic that could yield massive results. And what happened is we started working on how can we build a movement actually around that autonomous business concept. So it's not really about just learning ourselves and turning our own business into becoming an autonomous business. Okay, let's try to change the way that startups all around the world look at scale. And if we'll be able to make that impact, they will look at Swann as an organization that knows what does it really mean to have human AI collaboration in your go-to-market operations. And that's why they will choose us over the tens of thousands of other vendors that are fighting over the same attention and budget, specifically in go-to-market. And that focus on movement as a strategy led us to try unconventional tactics where we're not trying to generate pipeline in our efforts. What we're actually trying to do is raise awareness for this new scaling model that we're developing internally and we want to share with the world. And just that notion of that's what we're optimizing for, just mind share of here's a new scaling model that is superior to what we had until now, led to this opening of different channels to do it. And one of them was writing content on LinkedIn. And I started writing LinkedIn posts 6-7 months ago. I had 2,000 connections then. Right now I have more than 30,000 followers. Every month I generate more than 1 million impressions over LinkedIn.
Wow.
And that really compounded over time because I started talking about small teams, and how they can, an autonomous business could scale with intelligence, not with headcount, and really give that non-BS approach to using AI in human AI collaboration point of view, not by replacing humans, by amplifying them. And I didn't talk a lot about the product itself. Almost never I talk about the product on my LinkedIn. And that led to massive awareness creation and eventually pipeline generation. But in that process, what happened is that we start building an army of agents around that entire LinkedIn posting funnel. And every time that I hit a bottleneck in that phase, in that process, I sat down with Ido, my co-founder, and with Neve, and we asked ourselves, okay, so how can we build an AI agent that will unblock that bottleneck and will help me just drive better results out of the narrative that I'm trying to push towards to the world? And every layer unveiled a new challenge. Every challenge yielded another agent, and that's what happened eventually, that right now we have a machine that has over 7 different agents at different stage of the funnel that can take all of that engagement and really turn it into qualified pipeline in a precise, high quality way.
That is really, really cool. It's a new world. I mean, just thinking about the growth. I mean, a lot of people struggle with it. How do I build a presence online? And then, like, here's how you do it. And you use your own tools and do that, and that develops, into more AI, more agents, more tasks, and using those lessons, able to do it in other areas as well.
Yeah, I feel like the main lesson here is that it started with the person, with the human. At the beginning, there was the narrative that was powerful. It was my passions and skills that intertwined into that. You had that combination, and then that created an opportunity for us to build a machine around that. And so it started with an operator that understands how this should grow. And then whenever the machine interacted with friction, with a challenge, then we were able to build an AI agent to remove that friction from the machine. And we have an agent we call Shakespeare that helps me write the content, so that I don't need to invest like 4 or 5 hours a week just writing that content. So I take it down. I don't blast with 100 posts, and I don't go to ChatGPT, just write me that post. I have a collaborative companion, a thought companion that I can think with and work with it in an iterative process to just take the post-creation process from like 1.5 hours to 20 minutes, 10 minutes even sometimes. And after Shakespeare, we have the observer, which looks at the posts and on the people that are interacting with that post and filters out the high intent leads that we should focus on and serves them up to me in Slack so I can engage them in a thoughtful way. And then if you go down the funnel, we have people that interacted with my post but sent me a connection request and follows me. So we have that. The connector just monitors these connection requests. I can get sometimes 300 connection requests a day. Sometimes I remember I had a day I got like 1,400. So a human cannot go over that, and you would just miss a lot of qualified pipeline. And so I had an agent that would just filter these out and start just conversation starters with these relevant prospects. So when I go to my inbox, I already have 30 leads that are qualified, that already responded to the first message. So I know that they're really in market to have a conversation with me about the product. And these agents, they proliferate down the funnel as well. We have an agent that monitors the people that went to our website actually but didn't convert, so we know who they are, filters for how high intent qualified leads to reach out to them, bring them to a conversation. Then we have an agent that routes all the inbound requests and know what to do with each type of a demo request, basically whether to send it to a self-serve, to a meeting, how to assign owners, etc. After that, we have an agent that preps me for calls and allows me to just focus on a call after a call without preparing for it, because it gives me all the context that I need from my CRM and online, etc. And that list goes on, Jeff, and you get the idea that I'm in the center of it, but there's an agentic world that lives around me to just make sure that I always stay in my zone of genius.
That was really, really good. Well, for a founder that's listening who's curious about building more leverage into their business, but doesn't necessarily know where to start with, autonomous agents or building an autonomous business, what's one action they can take this week to build their AI muscle?
Yeah. So I would recommend identifying something that disturbs you lightly. Okay, don't look at a complex task. And when I look at complexity, I mean integration to a lot of tools, or um, each time that you want specific answer that is different than the other one. So look for repetitive tasks that doesn't require a lot of intelligence, and they don't focus across a lot of systems. Okay, so they just maybe one or two. Um, and then you can go to one of these no-code platforms. So Zapier is actually a good example. You can go to
Okay.
Zapier. Zapier has this ability to just in natural language build agents, basically. So it's very easy. And you can just try to create an agent that solves that specific friction point for you. And maybe a good place to start is whenever you have a meeting, to send you a brief, a prep before that meeting over email or over a Slack message. And then you have an agent that preps you for meetings, for example. So that's a very simple agent because it just works with your calendar, and it just needs to research online maybe a bit, and then it can just give you an answer over email. So that might be a simple agent to start with. But the framework is to look for non-complex tasks and that doesn't span across multiple data sources or tools, and just go at it with these no code tools that are super simple to use it. Or you can just go to Swann in that sense, which is extremely easy to build one of these. So you get out of the box a meeting prep agent, and it's very easy to build these agents at Swann. That's also another possibility, but any no code tool that could actually make it simple for you to build these agents are a possibility.
I love that. Well, where can people learn more about you and about Swann AI online?
Um, so first of all, you can find us at getswann.com. You can follow my LinkedIn activity. I try to share interesting content there. So look for Amos Bar Joseph on LinkedIn. And I also have a newsletter where I write about the ups and downs, the wins and losses of building an autonomous business. So if you want kind of like a front row seat to that journey, you can just subscribe to the Big Shift newsletter, and maybe we'll share some links after the session, Jeff. And finally, if you want to talk to me, but I'm super busy, you can talk with my digital clone on ChatGPT. It's called Autonomous. Um, and it's basically an agent that lives in ChatGPT that has access to all of my posts and podcasts and frameworks, etc. So it almost as good as I am, not there yet, but you can ask me questions about how to build an autonomous business and help you with the implementation process, etc. It can be a thought companion in this journey of transforming your business into becoming more AI native.
That's awesome. We'll make sure and link all of that in the show notes. I think there'll probably be a lot of people who want to go have a virtual conversation with you and autonomous and see what that's all about, see what's possible. I think that's awesome. Amos, it has been absolute pleasure. So much value today. I mean, my mind is just spinning. There's so many things. It's like, oh, I want to go try that. So I really appreciate you being on SaaS Fuel.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Jeff. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks again, Amos, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. You can learn more about Amos and Swann at getswann.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. It's at Champion Leadership. We have full video episodes over there, training, outtakes, shorts, lots of things over there for you. And that's at Champion Leadership on YouTube. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with your friend who insists their startup is totally different, even though it's literally Uber for goats. Everyone who shares this week gets a novelty cap table that includes emotional equity, caffeine consumption, and one slightly concerned mentor. What if you could double your B2B revenue in just 90 days? Sound impossible? Wishful thinking? Well, our next guest, Mark Osborne, is the founder of Modern Revenue Strategies and host of the B2B Growth Blueprint. With a track record of tens of millions in client revenue and a 10x ROI guarantee, Mark is breaking down the exact systems B2B teams need to scale fast, sustainably, and strategically. Then after that, we have Darren Milne, CEO of Vivid Q, a company turning science fiction into display tech reality. With a PhD in quantum optics and a mission to redefine how we see the world, Darren shares how holographic display is poised to disrupt everything from phones to automotive to AR. This is absolutely cutting edge, incredible tech. You won't believe what they're doing. I was completely blown away that this even exists, and to actually see it, pretty amazing stuff. So I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey. See ya.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.